Good morning, everybody. It'll probably be good evening by the time this is out, but welcome back to the Brew with Matt and Mike. Mike, good morning. How are you doing, sir?
Man, I'm lovely. It's a balmy 85 down here. I just finished lifting some weights. I get to hang out with you before I go and
Oh,
hurt my body and do some more basketball stuff. And I got to play around a little bit. I found some of my jerseys. I'm unpacking a little bit more. I'm getting there. So if anybody knows the couple of jerseys you guys can see, if anybody can name them in the comments, other than the one in the middle, that's my national team one from here in PR. But yeah, if you can name the other two, that would be big time and much appreciated. So everything is good, Matt. I'm feeling groovy. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It is not whatever the temperature you just said it was, like 80 degrees. It is. Yesterday, it was 25 and a cold 25. Windy, brutal day. Probably one of the most brutal days, if not the most brutal day of February. And maybe my memory is incorrect there. But I want to point out that's Timberwolves 21 on the far left for Mike. So I just want to point that out for the viewers. Do you guys know who that is? I feel like it should be obvious knowing where Mike's from. But leave it down in the comments if you can figure out who's on the far left and on the far right. But yeah, to start this off, Mike and I were talking a little coffee this morning. We both have our brew to start the day. And we're going to get into how we make our coffee. And then we'll get into the Oregon game. And we'll also talk about a stat that we saw that is actually incredible from Wisconsin Badgers and their consistency over the years. But let's talk a little coffee before we get into this. And Mike, how do you prepare your coffee each day? And what are you mixing in there?
All right. So for me, the way I make my coffee, or my favorite way to make my coffee, is using a La Greca, or it's also called a mocha pot. It's called what? I'm going to mess this up. It's a Bialetti. That's the other one, or a stovetop espresso machine. So it's, it's got three pieces. It's got the water underneath, everything like that. That's my favorite way to make coffee. If I have the option of doing that, I'm definitely doing that. I have recently changed a couple of things doing that as well. You can throw water on the bottom, but you can also throw a little milk in there. Just doing a little research. So you kind of you heat up your milk that way instead of hitting it in cold coffee, or hitting cold milk and warm coffee. So I've been doing that. It's been a game changer, absolute game changer, making me like a little mini latte without having to do all the steaming of the milk. I've been recently throwing a little bit of honey, and I always throw high fat, basically grass-fed butter into my coffee. So, that's that bulletproof style. I try to get my nice fats early in the morning because that's how my body likes to run on stuff. It gives me the most energy for me to go about and be a professional athlete and just be a happy human during the day. So that's how I get down. I know a lot of people look at me crazy with the high fat milk. The high fat butter, but don't knock it till you try it. That's all I'm going to say.
Absolutely. Okay. The one thing I will point out about, and not to rip on your coffee because we each have our own taste, but I got to say, honey and coffee historically, when I've done it, it doesn't mix well. I never noticed the honey. And it's like, honey's healthy, so I understand throwing it in for that reason, but it's surprisingly, you don't really taste the honey. Did you agree or disagree with that?
It just adds just a little bit of lightness to it. And then I also throw a little vanilla in there from time to time if I'm feeling like a fancy boy. Today was feeling fancy. So I would say, yeah, that's how it is. I understand you don't really feel it so much. It's definitely different than sugar. But
yeah, I avoid sugar.
Yeah, that's the vibe.
Yeah. Okay. So I use a standard drip coffee maker, but what I like to do, and get my mixologist hat on, coffee is such a hearty taste to it. I feel like it should be giving me some health benefit. So I like to add collagen, a chocolate collagen, hair, skin, and nails, get a little protein in there as well. And then I like to add my creatine in it, mix it up with the frother, the little hand blender. And that's my go-to. Then I like a little heavy whipping cream. My ideal coffee, just straight up coffee and heavy whipping cream. Give me some organic Valley heavy whipping cream. Tastes unbelievable.
I agree.
That's one, honestly, that few things bring me more joy in life than my remote start on my car, like I mentioned earlier, and having a coffee early in the morning with my heavy whipping cream. But I like to get a little health benefit, so I mix some crap in there. And I will say, for me, my coffee maker, it comes out so hot that putting cold heavy whipping cream in there, it helps it get to a temperature where I can drink it right away. So that's how I'm drinking my coffee each day.
I agree with you. I have been a big proponent of the heavy whipping cream. The problem is I'm a Minnesota boy. I grew up on in the boonies a little bit, so I drink that stuff. Like it's no problem for me to just give me a quick shot. So a lot of times I only maybe get 2 or 3 cups of coffee out of it, and the rest of the time I'm just like, let me get another one of those. That's delicious. So, but I like your style, and I'm not gonna lie. The hair, skin, and nails collagen, that's elite. It's showing
Yes.
up. You're glowing. You're glowing today.
I'm
I
trying
can
to be
see
like
it.
you. I want to see. I want to be aging like you. I want to be the oldest Badger still hooping. I want to be going when I'm 40. I want to be playing at a high level professionally, like you. So
Hey, you got a chance. You got with that coffee mix. You got a chance.
yeah, man. So let's get into it. We got. Well, actually, we're gonna get into the stat before we get into Oregon. This is actually crazy. Wisconsin. Here's they posted it. I've seen 2 different tweets, but with the win over Iowa, Wisconsin has clinched a winning conference record for the 23rd time in the last 26 seasons, most by any Big Ten school. 23 in the last 26 seasons for Wisconsin includes this season. And then the next closest is Michigan State at 20. Next closest is Purdue at 18, Ohio State 17, and so on. But that's incredible. I think people don't understand how difficult it is to win on a consistent basis. And that's really impressive. Mike, just give me your reaction. You contributed to that consistent streak. But yeah, what's your reaction to that?
Yeah, we talked about this a couple of episodes ago, of just how consistent Wisconsin is, right? Like, it's very, very challenging to win at this level. Also, you got to understand, college basketball is night and day different than when I played. 10, 14 plus years ago now, or 13 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Ew. It's a lot. That's now we're hitting double digits. That's a little scary, but it's very, very different now. The style of recruiting. It's a lot of luck that's involved, right? We're going to cover Oregon. Oregon's been decimated by injuries this season. It's a lot of things, and just to have that consistency with the variability of basketball, with basketball, college basketball specifically, changing the landscape, completely shifting over the last 5 years, and it's just impressive, right? It's a credit to who Wisconsin has at the helm. They've had 2 legendary coaches now. Coach Gard is moving into that legendary status just because of the consistency, right? We had Bo Ryan, and he was the epitome of consistency. We had such a high floor, and that's one of the things. Looking at the football program with Wisconsin is, yeah, we weren't necessarily always competing for national championships. We were always competing for Big Ten championships. We were always winning 8+ games. That floor was always such an extremely high level that most people, most other programs, our floor was what they were hoping for. That was their ceiling. And it's such an interesting, dynamic of college basketball, and just going like, hey, who can be the most consistent? Who can do the things really, really well for over and over and over again? And that's what we, a credit to success. And Coach Gard's done a great job. We are a little bit, I would say we're a little bit spoiled, right? Because we want more runs. We want deeper runs. We want guys to play in that Final Four. We haven't had a second weekend in a few years now. We're looking at that like, man, where is this at? But it's like, you got to appreciate what you got too. And we got guys, we got teams that are relevant every year. They are relevant. They are making the tournament every year. That is not a feat that is easy. I remember getting recruited by teams when I was going through schools and looking at schools, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're probably gonna make the NCAA tournament this year." That's a goal, right? That's a big goal for 99% of programs outside of the top 25. Those blue bloods, where there's an expectation there, and Wisconsin's there. That's the expectation. That's not the, hey, we hope we get here. And that was one of the reasons why I committed there. It was, hey, we win. We get to the tournament every year, and it's an expectation. It's not a surprise when you get there. So for me, it's a beautiful thing. And I just hope people can really understand that the consistency, the work, the style, the luck you have to have that is incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to build off that a little bit. Talking about luck, you look at 2 years where I imagine they didn't come close to a winning record in conference play. Was 2018, so 2017-18 season, and the 22-23 season. And both those years, in 2018, that was bad luck, where you had Kobe King and Demetric Trice. Both guys got injured early on in the season. I believe Kobe got hurt before the season. Trice got injured a few games in. maybe not they make the tournament. I think they would have been a bubble team if they would have been
Yeah.
fully healthy that year. Then 2023, you had Wisconsin. They were 14th in the country in early January in 2023. Before Tyler Wall had that ankle injury against Minnesota, Wisconsin was looking tough. And that was honestly, for them to be playing that well, I thought that was one of the most impressive things we've seen from Gard. Because no disrespect to Jordan Davis, but Jordan Davis was starting on that team. And he goes over to Illinois State, and I believe he averages 3 points per game the next 2 seasons at Illinois State as a redshirt junior, redshirt senior. And he was starting for Wisconsin. And they were not deep at all. They had no bench, and Jordan Davis was starting for them. And it was Tyler Wall, Stephen Crowell, Chucky were their three best players. And I just thought that was a super impressive thing. And Tyler Wall, I always will throw this in there. He was playing like a beast that year. No one remembers how good Tyler Wall was those first 2 months because he never really returned to that form. But talk about luck. I mean, they had some pretty good luck over the years, but you also make your own luck. But if they had a little better luck those 2 seasons, they very easily could have made the NCAA tournament. So, yeah, the consistency's unbelievable. And I also want to point out that Bo Ryan in his first season at Wisconsin was 53 years old. Greg Gard right now is 55, and it seems like he's found his stride. And it took a minute. I mean, people remember Bo because the last 2 full seasons, he made a Final Four and almost won the national championship the following season. And so people remember that, but it took a minute for Bo to get there. The criticism was, they are consistent, but Bo's style will never win in March. He can't make a deep run in March. I believe they made a final in Elite Eight in 2005, but he would never get through that Sweet 16 hurdle most of the time. Or he would lose in the round of 32, some round of 64 games. So Gard's 55, and he's finding his stride. So I would not be surprised if Gard makes some deep runs. Remember, it took Bo a second to get there too. But yeah, super impressive from Wisconsin. Badger fans are spoiled. I mean, that's high-level stuff to be that consistent. And now, anything else you want to add, or do you want to get into Oregon?
I mean, if you just look at that list, right, it was Michigan State and Purdue.
That's crazy.
And you look at those that's the class of the Big Ten right there. Like whatever you want to say about Wisconsin and their postseason success, and it's one of those things where people, you're only as good as your last game, and I completely understand that from a lot of different perspectives. But man, they're the class of the Big Ten almost every year. Like Illinois not up there. It's Wisconsin, Purdue, and Michigan State, and that's the 3 teams in the Big Ten that are consistently going to be fighting for Big Ten championships and being ranked in the top 25 and all that. It's been a consistent basis, and it's such a cool thing to be part of something like that. So just remember that when after a loss or stuff happens, just remember we got it better than 99% of the people in the country.
Yes, 100%. And I'll start us off with Oregon, getting into the preview here. Mike, when we were talking off camera, Mike said this is a bad Oregon team. And I don't necessarily disagree, but I do believe they're more talented than their record is for sure. They've been banged up this year with injuries. Before the season started, they were looked at as kind of a fringe top 25 team. That was the expectation heading into the year. Point guard Jackson Shelstad, he got hurt December 28th against Omaha, and that changed things for them because they had him and Bittle returning. That's a really good duo. Altman's a really good coach, but they don't have a true facilitator. That's their biggest weakness, along with the fact that they can't really shoot the ball too well. But even outside of Shelstad, they have been injured quite a bit. They've played 27 games this season. Only 2 guys on their roster have played a full 27. But it looks like outside of Shelstad, who's out for the season, they're as healthy as they've been all year. So talent-wise, this is a pretty solid team. They don't shoot the ball well. That's a pretty big weakness. They're shooting 29% since 2026 started. They're a bad three-point shooting team. But you give Altman some athletes, which they have. I mean, it's Oregon, so they have funding. And even before NIL, they always brought in high-level, lengthy athletes. So they have athletes. They have length. Their starting lineup goes 6'3", 6'4", 6'9", 6'10", 7 foot. They have an athletic 6'6" wing and Lindsay coming off the bench. They have athletes. They have a legit stud down low in Bittle. Bittle's a guy who gave Stephen Crowell some problems last year. And it's kind of funny. Bittle and Owen Freeman from Creighton, those are 2 guys who I wouldn't say dominated Crowell, but kind of gave him problems. And both guys aren't having years you would expect. But Bittle has been banged up a little bit. Only 20 games. When they didn't have him, they've been in big struggles. but they've won 2 of their last 3, and they just beat Oregon on the road, and they did so going 4 of 16 from 3. And they almost beat Purdue going 5 of 25 from 3. And these guys are D1 Hoopers. So my concern is this game does scare me a little bit. I'm not going to lie. And I don't think it's going to be a madhouse at Oregon. But if Oregon starts making some shots, like they shot 14 to 27 from 3 against Penn State. Like they've shown they're capable of getting hot for a night. So this game, to me, is going to show a lot about Wisconsin. Do they have their killer instinct to just go out there and go for the throat right away and just run Oregon out of the gym? Do they have that in them, or is this going to be a dogfight? And I won't be surprised at all if this is a dogfight, because Oregon, I hope they didn't reach their kumbaya moment where they just beat USC on the road and they're figuring some stuff out. Like if they can figure some stuff out on the defensive end, and then if they have just a decent shooting night, we're in for a ball game. Bittle down low is a real hooper. They have athletes, and Altman's a good coach. So that's kind of my preview so far for Oregon. And I'll throw in, they're averaging 4 blocks per game. So that shows you the athleticism. And also, Bittle's averaging 2 blocks per game, and he's leading them in assists, which that's not ideal for Oregon. So not having Shellstead, that hurts a lot. But length, athletes, Bittle down low, this isn't a cupcake. This is much better talent-wise than a 3-13 team.
Yeah, the record is a little bit deceiving, I would say. Dana Altman's a hell of a coach. We were talking off camera. This is probably his worst, and we didn't research this, but I would bet pretty good money that this is his worst outing as a coach in his 16-year career at Oregon. He's had it rolling up there. He's had multiple teams that are extremely talented. He's getting a lot of athletes up there. This team has a lot of size. They got 4 guys averaging double digits, 4 guys averaging 12 or more a game, which is really good balance, especially considering, one of their main ball handlers left, is not in the picture anymore because of injuries. So for me, it's a game, it's a team that has a lot of size, a lot of length. They're a difficult matchup. I would say, the biggest thing is how can they contain Boyd and Blackwell? Are those guys going to be able to continue to attack the rim, get some foul trouble, get into their bench? Because that's one of the things that's really important for Wisconsin against these guys is, can they draw enough fouls to get to those secondary players? Because there's so much injuries on Oregon that, their depth is really what the problem is right now, as well as not having a main playmaker like they do. So we'll see what happens with that. Obviously I think it's going to be a really fun up and down game. Oregon just had a nail biter, and they went on a 7-0 run against USC. So that USC loss is not looking as good as it was before. It's looking a little bit worse every day now. But they were down 7 with like 50 seconds left, and they came back, and that shows a lot of resiliency. So hopefully we can find them and just kind of punch them in the mouth early, get them into foul trouble, and then control the game. I think that's the biggest thing my biggest thing for them is who's going to match up with Nick Boyd. Who's going to try and take them out, and do they steal some stuff from Ohio State, where Ohio State went a lot of zone. They tried to slow the game down. They mucked the game up. They shot the hell out of the ball too. So that's kind of the recipe for success for a team that's a little bit down, especially because of injuries. And, I don't think Oregon's an easy place to get to. There's a lot of snow going on right now. It's a West Coast travel. And that's the thing I'm really noticing with these last couple of years of the Big Ten and the expanded Big Ten is when teams go on these West Coast trips, they're not easy. It's a very, very different vibe when you get out there, as well as these are former Pac-12 teams. So they're not the typical style of team that you're used to seeing in the Big Ten. This expanded Big Ten has way, way different styles all across the conference. So it's really cool to see. It's fun. That's one of the reasons why I think college basketball is getting a little bit more traction right now, is because of the different styles. It's not so homogeneous, just like the NBA is right now. But it'll be really interesting. But like you said, if we can just punch them in the mouth, not have a sleepy start, and I think if Rapp comes off the bench and knocks down a couple threes early, we should be good.
Yeah. Bittle is, once again, Bittle's the guy who concerns me. He gave Crowell problems, and Crowell was 23, turned 24 shortly after the season. He was just a solid center, and Bittle got busy. I believe he got in foul trouble in the first half. It was at the Kohl Center, and it seemed like Wisconsin had that game handled, and then Oregon came storming back in the second half and won in overtime. But Bittle was eating in that second half in overtime, 23 points. So if he was doing that to Crowell, I'm a bit concerned. What does he do to Belauskas down low, or if Winter's guarding him? Well, what is Bittle doing? I will say he looks a little hobbled in the videos I've seen. He doesn't look like he's moving the most fluidly. Granted, I don't think that's ever been his thing, is just being a super fluid athlete. But I'm a bit concerned about what Biddle's going to do to Belauskas down low. And I will say, I remember Biddle's a guy who Wisconsin played in 2023 in the NIT. So this could be the last time Wisconsin sees Oregon. Oregon's a team, just kind of wrapping this up. Oregon's a team that I could see not making it all the way to the Big Ten championship or anything like that. And I'm not sure if they have all the teams in the Big Ten tournament this year, how that format is. But if they're in it, they're a team I could see who could figure some stuff out and say maybe win 2 games, go on a little mini run there. They have some talent there. They're getting healthier, but they really can't shoot. But if they do shoot well, that could get a little scary. But that's all I got. Yeah. And I will say this Oregon team, they have athletes and they like to mix in a little bit of zone, some full court, some half court pressure. They kind of mid-tempo kind of pace. They're not the fastest, but they're definitely not the slowest. So that's kind of what I'm seeing from Oregon. But yeah, Mike, anything else as we wrap this up?
No, I'm just looking forward to the game. It should be a good matchup. Obviously it's a grind in the Big Ten, so these guys got to show up and do it. We're still fighting for seed lines, right? We're trying to get into that top 4, top 5, trying to get into where we don't have to travel as far if we can, as well as get those more favorable matchups when you get into the round of 32. That's really the biggest thing, is you're trying to find a way to creep up that seed line so you can be a better matchup and find better matchups for yourself come tournament time. And as well as for the Big Ten, they're still in the hunt for trying to get a bye, I believe. So, and that's huge. Getting a bye, getting a double bye. I don't know if they'll be able to get to the double bye, but if they can, that saves your legs. And that really allows you the opportunity to go and win a tournament, right? Go and win the Big Ten. And then ultimately, where does that push you on the seed line? So these guys got a long way, got a few more games left here, but this one's really important, and just looking forward to it. And then obviously get to hang out with you afterwards, which is even better.
Yes, sir. So yeah, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for making it to the end of the video. Go find us on TikTok, Spotify, Instagram, and we will see you again soon.